Diablo 4's open world is massive and it's fully explained. I wanted to dive into this. This was just released like a day or two ago, but we're gonna check it out, see if there's any more information that we don't know, and we're gonna cover it here.
So Diablo 4 is the first game in the Diablo franchise to have a fully open world, and this open world design is going to play a major role in almost all of the content present in Diablo 4. So I want to go over everything you can expect in the open world of Diablo 4. Now the open world is going to be made up of 5 different regions that are all pretty massive, and these are going to be Dry Steppes, Fractured Peaks, Hawazar, Kajistan, and Skazglan. Now
and so far we've only checked out what, Fractured Peaks. Yeah, we've only been in this area, chat. That's the only area we've explored so far, and I don't even think we explored all of it yet.
Fractured Peaks, Hawazar, Kajistan, and Skazglan. Now there is going to be kind of a 6th region, which is Hell, and we know we go there at
Hell? Bro.
some point, but that's pretty much the only information we have for that section of the game. So the majority of the game's open world content and majority of the content in the game in general is going to take place in these 5 different regions. And a good place to start off is questing, because one of the main objectives you're going to have in your first time playing through Diablo 4 is to follow the main quest line and to follow that main campaign that's going to take you to all 5 of the different regions. Now, with this being an open world game, you're actually able to go to any region you want whenever you want, and you're able to do the main campaign in any order you want. So on one playthrough you could start at Skazglan, one playthrough you could go to Dry Steppes. So you can pretty much...
That's very odd that they would allow you to do that. I don't know, wouldn't that put the story or the campaign out of order then, though? Let me know.
Mix and match the different chapters of the main campaign in any order you want to do them. But also, after you complete the main campaign once on one character, you are able to skip that campaign on any of your alt characters.
That we already know. We checked that out on my last react video for Diablo 4. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, make sure you go to my channel and then go to my playlists and click on reacts, and then go down to that Diablo video. It was just posted like yesterday, I think. Or maybe the other day. Anyways, it's there. Check it out.
Which will allow you to level up in what's essentially the adventure mode of Diablo 4. And then past the main campaign quest, there's also going to be hundreds of side quests throughout all of these different zones. And if you played the open beta, you'll have seen this. There are tons of side quests in all the main hubs or any of the cities or settlements you visit. Then there are just going to be random quests you find scattered throughout the world. You may find a dead body somewhere that you inspect, and this will give you a side quest. There's even items you can randomly obtain from certain enemies that will also give you a piece of a side quest. And these side quests aren't just one and done pieces of content. A lot of them are actually part of a bigger side quest chain that usually is tied to a single settlement or city in the game, and they usually build up to have a conclusion. And a lot of the side quest chains I did in the open beta were actually very interesting, and a lot of them were really well done, the same as the main campaign quests were very well done as well. So as you're exploring this open world, going through following your quest, you're going to find a ton of additional content that you can partake in. First off being the open world events. And these are always going to be colored orange. It's usually going to pop up an orange circle that shows you what area to go to partake in one of these different events. And there's just going to be a ton of different events it can possibly be. Usually the same event in one area is generally going to be the same event, but there are dozens and dozens of different potential events you can come across. And these events are also going to be pretty important because not only are they going to award a bunch of additional experience, gold, and gear, but they're also going to give you murmuring obols, which are a currency you can use to go gamble for gear at a vendor in the main.
That's nice, yeah, because so we can gamble our gear too on here. That's great. I figured they would. I don't recall if we even talked about gambling on gear, but that's really nice that they have that.
Cities of the game. And in a similar vein, you're also going to be coming across a ton of different sellers. Now, these were actually very similar to each other in the beta, but essentially all these are a cellar you enter. It's usually 1 or 2 small little rooms, and there's usually a small event.
Yeah, and this is one thing I told Blizzard that they need to fix actually, and it wasn't just me that was talking about the sellers, but a lot of people had complaints with the sellers. They weren't good enough. They all looked the same, and there would be like one little group in there with like maybe a mini boss or something.
Event inside, it'll usually spawn a pack of enemies, an elite or a mini boss, maybe even a chest or something like that. And when you complete it, you usually will obtain a similar chest to what you find in the open world events. And these are very small pieces of content that are going to be more used for another system in the end game. And these aren't going to be a main bit of content, but they are a more small side activity that you can partake in once you come across them. Now, something that's a much bigger piece of the open world are going to be strongholds. And you may have encountered these in the beta because these are actually a pretty difficult piece of content to change up how the world actually is. So once you go to a specific area and it's a stronghold event there, you're going to have to follow this event that's currently active, and it's usually something pretty difficult. For instance, one of the ones in the beta is you had to go around to these 4 different points to kill these mini bosses that were channeling on a big boss.
I think I remember these strongholds or strong points, whatever they're called. I'm not exactly for certain though.
In the middle. Once you defeated all those mini bosses, you then go to the center of this area, and it's an actual boss fight. It was actually really difficult if you were trying to do it solo. But once you complete all of that, this area is going to transform into a settlement that has a teleporter, and then it's going to have a bunch of vendors and new quest givers. So essentially how this is working is these strongholds are places you go, defeat the monsters at, and you take them over, turning them into a settlement or a camp that's not going to be a permanent part of the world. So going and completing these strongholds early on is actually going to be very important, specifically because of it having the teleporter at this location, and then also unlocking a bunch of additional side quests and different vendors and other crafting NPCs. And talking about crafting, the open world is actually going to play a massive role in the different crafting systems in Diablo 4, specifically because of harvesting materials. And there's going to be a handful of different ways you can get all the different materials in Diablo 4. One of them is going to be through harvesting. So there will be clickable ore deposits and flowers all throughout.
So are you gonna be able to craft weapons from the harvested materials?
The world. So instead of harvesting like in an MMO where it usually takes a few seconds, then you break the ore deposit and get your resources, it just instantly pops it out and you get to pick it up off the floor. It's a bit quicker, and it allows you to keep the pace of RPG combat a bit quicker, so you're not sitting around harvesting materials all the time. But that's just going to be the first way you get materials, because you're also going to be getting materials from all the different creatures or animals you kill out in the open world. So maybe you kill a bird and it'll drop you some leather, and all the different animals can drop you different materials. And likewise, a lot of the different creatures throughout the game in the open world or in instances are also going to drop additional materials. Then you have very rare materials that say drop from only very difficult bosses or even world bosses that are also out in the open world. So that's a good segue into world bosses that are also going to be another piece of outdoor world content.
I have not yet fought a world boss. I don't think I played it long enough to the beta long enough to be able to find one, honestly.
You're actually able to partake in these while you're leveling up, so they're not only an end game piece of content, but they're going to be very important once you get into the end game as well. There's going to be 4 or 5 world bosses on the launch of the game. They're going to be on different timers, and as seen in some of the footage, these are very difficult bosses, and you can have up to 12 people in your instance fighting them at a singular time. And one of the most important pieces of world bosses is that they give you a specific material that allows you to add sockets to pieces of gear that don't already have sockets on them,
which is awesome.
Going to be very important in the end game. They're also obviously going to give you a ton of loot for defeating them. And another big piece of open world content that's going to be very important as you get into the end game is going to be the Renown system and Shrines of Lilith that are both kind of intertwined. So first off, the Renown system. So every region in the game is going to have a different Renown bar to complete. And doing just tons of different pieces of content in the game, open world and instance, are going to give you renown. So completing dungeons, completing strongholds, your first time completing cellars, finding Shrines of Lilith, and a handful of other objectives are all going to give you renown points. Now, as you get more and more renown points, you're going to unlock different rewards. Now, there's going to be account-wide rewards, which when you unlock them once, it's on your entire account forever. And then there's going to be ones that are character specific. So all the character specific rewards are pretty much all just going going to be gold and experience. So if you say go through on your main character, get a bunch of renown, you have all these permanent rewards. Once you get on an alt, your alt will have those permanent rewards, but the experience and gold, your alt won't be able to claim. They'll have to go get their own renown to claim that just experience and gold reward, which is much less important. It's just a way to give you some additional experience. But the permanent rewards are very important, because in these permanent rewards, you can get things like increase to how many potions you can carry, you can get more skill points, you can get more paragon points, and a handful of other very important
Paragon points are very important.
And again, those permanent rewards are on all of your characters. So if you go and complete like all the renown in the game, you're going to have a bunch of additional skill points. But once you go create an alt character, they're also going to have those additional skill points right at the start of the game. So that's going to make leveling up alt even faster and make it much more easy. So completing a lot of the renown system is going to be very important on your first character to make all of your subsequent characters much stronger and much easier to level up. And as I mentioned, Shrines of Lilith are part of the renown system. So finding a Shrine of Lilith will give you some renown, but Shrines of Lilith themselves are very important for your entire account as well, because these are account-wide stat increases. And there's hundreds of Shrines of Lilith in the game. Now, once you go find a Shrine of Lilith and click on it, you're going to get some experience and some gold just right off the bat. So they're going to be very good to click once you come across them on any character you're on. But the first time you get every Shrine of Lilith, it's going to give you a permanent stat increase, +2 to any of the main stats in the game. So strength, intelligence, wisdom, etc. So Shrines of Lilith are also going to be an account-wide permanent progression system. It's going to be very important, because if you could think, finding hundreds of these shrines and all of them giving like +2 to your main stats is going to build up to be a massive stat increase. And this is also going to be account-wide. So your new characters are also going to be getting these massive stat increases from your main character finding these. So again, this is just going to make leveling up new characters much easier, and then it's just going to make all your characters much stronger in general. And as mentioned with the renown system, even things like instance content still count towards this renown system. So you have things like dungeons that are a major part of the game that you're going to have to actually go to their entrance in the open world to actually enter them. So even though things like dungeons and cellars are instance, they're still going to have a role in the open world of the game, because you actually have to travel to them to actually enter them. So this is going to be kind of a mix of open world and instance content, and things like this are very much going to play into the exploration of this open world, which is actually a thing that's going to be very important in Diablo 4, because unless you're someone that's going to go look at a map and find everything that way, exploring the entirety of the map is going to be very important for finding all these dungeons, all the side quests, all the Shrines of Lilith, and just finding all these different pieces of content. And another piece of the open world content are going to be the Fields of Hatred. Now this is going to be the PvP system of Diablo 4, and I think there's only going to be 2 of them on launch, but these Fields of Hatred are
end game, which we also talked about the end game in my last reaction video. There was a review on it, and we discussed like all the things coming and all the changes that were made so far.
Areas in the open world that when you enter and accept that you want to enter them, they're going to be open PvP. Any other players in this area can PvP each other. And there's going to be things like a new currency that you have to turn into a permanent currency, or you drop them and other players can pick them up. And there's still going to be chests and events and monsters to fight in this area to get this new currency. So it's going to be like a section of a region that there's going to be a PvPvE area with a new currency in it. And I've specifically gone over PvP in other videos, but that's kind of a top-down overview of that system that's going to be located in the open world. This isn't going to be like an instanced off area. You're just able to walk in these Fields of Hatred and start PvPing other players. Now there's actually going to be a lot more content in the open world as you get into the end game. Now the end game is considered to be level 50, or once you complete the main campaign. Some systems want you to complete the main campaign, some systems want you to be level 50. And the first of these being Hell Tides. Now I went over this in my last video, so if you want all of the very specific information, go watch that. But Hell Tides are going to start appearing once you get into World Tier 3, which requires you be in the end game. And this system is going to be Lilith and her armies taking over the entirety of a region of the open world. And as I mentioned, there's going to be 5 regions on launch, so this is going to be massive. And it's going to change the look of the zone. It's going to be completely invaded by demons. There's going to be roaming bosses and even kind of rare uber bosses. There's going to be tons of new events, and there's going to be a new currency currency that allows you to open Helltide specific chests to target farm specific pieces of loot. And this whole piece of content is only gonna start, like I mentioned, once you get into World Tier 3 and get into the end game. And again, this is in the open world, so other players that are in the end game and have Helltides unlocked can also just be roaming around in the region when the Helltide is active, and you'll be able to fight together if you want, or just see other players passing by. And this is going to be one of the big ways as how they're kind of changing up the world into the end game, and I fully expect they continue to do this in future content. Now, the other big piece of open world content that's going to be added as you get into the end game are the Whispers of the Dead, or the Tree of Whispers. So these Whispers of the Dead are essentially the bounty system of Diablo 4. So pretty much anything in the open world of Diablo 4 could be one of these Whispers. Even all of the sellers of the game can also be Whispers. And these are essentially just going to be objectives in the open world you go complete for gold, experience, and specific loot. And you're actually able to see the rewards you're going to get from completing it. So you can go target these Whispers to get more gold.
Now, is the Whispers the only in the end game, or is it throughout the entirety? Also, I have another question. Maybe chat, you can answer this, or leave a comment on the video. Does what if it is during the game, but you can only use it in end game? Say you go to like a cellar or something. Is that gonna have like some sort of whisper thing in it, or is it in game where you have to like pick up an objective or something and then go to those cellars, or you just find it in end game? That's my question.
Or more of a specific piece of loot or something like that. And completing any of these Whispers gives you Grim Favors, and once you get 10 of these Grim Favors, you take them to the Tree of Whispers, and then you will get to choose a cache of loot from the Tree of Whispers, and these are actually going to be targeted pieces of loot in these cache. So one cache may be full of gauntlets, one cache may be full of two-handed swords. So you're going to get a ton of the loot that the cache is filled with. Then you're also going to get Nightmare Sigils for the Nightmare Dungeon system. And the Tree of Whispers and the Whispers of the Dead, which are the same system, is going to be an endgame only system. So these are only going to start occurring once you complete the main campaign of the game. And then the open world is just going to have these hundreds of different objectives that are cycling multiple times a day for you to go complete and farm for more loot. Now, I couldn't go over the open world without talking about mounts, and they do exactly what you'd expect them to. You mount up to increase your movement speed to traverse this massive world much more easily, but they're actually going to have a little bit more tied into them than that. And the developers recently clarified that you're able to unlock mounts at some point in the main campaign. There's a specific...
Yep. And I've actually heard that it was like at level 20 or something like that, or 24 or 26. So... probably within a few hours of playing, like I'd say within like 4 or 5 hours of playing the campaign, you'll have mounts unlocked.
Quests you have to do to unlock mounts. Now, if we don't know if this is going to be at the end of one of the main quest lines or how early we're going to be able to get it, but you are able to unlock it before you complete the main campaign. Now, once you unlock mounts, you're able to then mount up, move around the world much more quickly, and also it ties a little bit into combat because every class is going to have their own class dismount ability. So for a rogue, you use your dismount ability, you jump up in the air and shoot a massive volley of arrows. If you're on a druid, you jump off your mount, turn into a bear, and land on the ground. So it's going to play a little bit into combat because these dismount abilities are also said to be very strong, so they do a lot of damage. And you're also going to be able to find other mounts and other mount cosmetics in the open world. So you're just able to find other mounts. We've seen a bunch of different horses you can find, or even skeletal horses and stuff like that, but presumably there's going to be other creatures you can find from doing other quests or activities, or just randomly getting them off different enemies you defeat. Then you also can get a bunch of different cosmetics for your mounts doing any content in the game.
That's
cosmetic
cool.
Saddles, mount skins, mount armor, and
that'll be fun to farm for. Mount skins and stuff.
And trophies that you obtain from just completing different objectives or feats of strength in the world. So you defeat a specific boss, you can now put that boss's head on the side of your mount. And obviously mounts are going to be a big part of the open world once you get into the end game, because you want to move around as quickly as possible. And we haven't seen any instance content that you're able to use mounts in. I doubt there's going to be like a dungeon that allows you to mount up through it. So it's going to be specifically for the open world. But that's pretty much all I want to go over.
Hey guys, if you like the video, make sure you head over to the page, hit that like button, scroll over, smash that subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get notified for future video drops, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.